Good afternoon. I'm Dave Blackwell, Dean of the Gatton College of Business and Economics, and I'm co-chair of the search committee for the inaugural Lewis Honors College Dean, along with Claire Renzetti, Chair of Sociology. And on behalf of the search committee, welcome. Thank you for coming. And thanks to those of you that are watching online and by video. The first slide shows the membership of the search committee. You could tell it's a pretty broad array of disciplines represented there. And I would like to mention that most of the members of the search committee, other than me, are also on the transition team to implement essentially the organization structure of the new college. And that transition team has been working very hard. They were given a long list of charges, of things to think about and work on, and I think I've heard they're almost done. I think you're on the very last piece, and their draft report will probably be circulating fairly soon. So the committee really has intimate knowledge of how the college is ultimately going to run, and so I think that gives them great insight into the kind of leadership that's needed for the new role. For those of you that aren't on the search committee, would the rest of you raise your hands so that so most of you are here. Great. So what we're going to do today really is just describe the search process, review the initial draft of the position description, and we are going to solicit your input on the position description, and we'll take notes of your comments. Also, I wanted to mention what the search committee has actually accomplished so far, which is not a huge amount, but we're really just getting started. But we've met with the provost to receive our charge. That was our very first meeting. Our next meeting was to go through unconscious bias training together. So there were a number of members of the committee who had not been through unconscious bias training, and we went through that together. We're obviously intent on having a very diverse, very qualified, excellent pool, and that's a big part of helping us to get there. We then worked with the search consultant. We took the charge from the provost, and the search committee drafted a position description, which has been reviewed now by the provost, as well as the search committee and the search consultant, and that's the draft that was uploaded to the search website. We have also met and discussed the timetable for the search and kind of pretty much laid that out with consultation from the search firm. So we'll go over that timetable so you can keep your eyes and ears open over the next few months. I'm going to turn it over to Claire in just a moment, but I'm going to mention just a couple of things from my perspective. One, this is a national search, but the last time I checked, Lexington is in the United States. And so even though it is a national search, we do want to encourage nominations and applications from colleagues that are interested in the role. So we really want to strongly emphasize that. And then at the end, we'll invite you to help us, but the way you can help us, there's several ways. One is to give us input on the position description, and we are working on setting up an email that will allow everyone to send input on the position description to the email. We'll need that input very quickly because we're up against the deadline to place the initial set of ads. The second thing that you can do to help is to submit nominations once the search is formally announced, and there will be a mechanism for that announced at the right time. So be thinking about potential nominations. And we really, really do need your help in developing a high-quality and diverse set of candidates. This is an exciting opportunity, a very challenging opportunity for someone. And when I say it's an exciting challenge, it's still a challenge. This person will need a lot of experience, a lot of collaborative instinct, and no worries. A lot of collaborative instinct, strong leadership and communication qualities. I mean, all the usual things that a dean would have, including vision. But I think in this case, someone's going to have to come on board and really communicate well across the entire campus, because the Honors College involves potentially every academic unit on campus. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Claire.
Here, where's this thing? Okay, do I really need this? I do. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, so as Dave mentioned, we developed a timeline, and it's not complete in that we only get down to when we provide the provost with the list of finalists, which, as you'll see, are unranked. But let's start at the top. So Whit Kiefer, our search firm, is going to be placing ads next week. They've provided us with a very long list of places where ads can be posted. And as Dave mentioned, we are going for a large and very diverse pool. And so their list of places where the ads will be posted represents an attempt to increase that diversity in the pool. The preferred consideration date is February 13th. And the search committee, though, as the applications come in, the search committee, so that we don't have a huge pile to go through all at once, is going to start reviewing batches of applications around the 1st of February, and then the final batch will be sent to us shortly after the 13th of February. We're going to all meet to discuss the applications and select the candidates for the confidential interviews. That meeting will take place the morning of February 24th. And then the confidential interviews are going to be scheduled. We wanted to do it before spring break. We thought that was really important. And they're always off campus. And for those of you who don't know your airport codes, CVG is Cincinnati. So we're going to be having the interviews at I assume at a hotel, like that Marriott near Cincinnati Airport or something like that, on March 7th and 8th. And we'll be doing 8 to 10 of those over the 2 days. We haven't decided yet if we're going to meet at the end of the day on March 8th, if we'll still be able to speak to, I know I'm not interested in doing that either, but we want to meet then the next day. We want to meet as soon as possible after we do those interviews so that we can come up with this list of unranked candidates, unranked finalists, 3 to 5 of them to send to the provost, okay? So the position announcement is actually very large, and I'm going to assume that you have looked at it. It's posted on the web. So what we did with the slides is we just made some highlights from that position announcement instead of including all the verbiage that's in it, because the candidates get not just the beginning of it, which is a couple of paragraphs, they get pages that include a leadership profile and information about the university and information about the gift that is creating the Honors College and things like that. So in these slides, we've just highlighted some of the things that will be included in the position description and the announcement and the leadership profile. If you haven't looked at it online, please do so that you can be fully informed of it and provide us with your feedback. So, I mean, none of these things are all that surprising in terms of what a dean does, but they're very, very important because this is a brand new college. And while the transition committee has worked very, very hard on these components, it's The whole report has to go to the University Senate. We have to get approval from the Senate, and I'm sure there's a whole lot more discussion that's going to go on. But you can see here some of the things that we've emphasized. And there has been proposed some changes to the curriculum, and the new dean will have to implement that and make sure that the appropriate instructional resources are available for that changed curriculum, that enhanced curriculum. And we want the dean to develop and help lead these co-curricular activities, of course, with the staff of the new Honors College and also with the students. Probably the most important thing, at least in my mind, but I think this emerged very strongly with the transition committee, is integrating the honors colleges with the other colleges and departments. The honors college, as you know, the honors program, as you know, has not been well integrated across the university, and we want it to be very much a part of the rest of the campus and integrate it with the other colleges. So this will be a really important role for the new dean to play. Of course, we want to recruit students to the college. Budget is always very important for a dean, and raising money to sustain the college beyond the gift that we already have. Okay? We are saying in the announcement that there are these wonderful opportunities as well as expectations for the new dean, and you can see what some of those are. And then we give these qualifications. So as Dave said, you know, there are certain things that the dean, that this person needs to have in order to do this well, and these are things we're going to be looking for. So this is just kind of the introduction to that section of the position announcement. So of course it should be a full professor, someone who can be a full professor with tenure here at the University of Kentucky in one of our academic departments, that they have good previous administrative experience in higher ed, preferably in an honors college or an honors program, so they know what that's all about. Because this is an honors college, we want someone who is a really strong teacher, someone who's very, very good in terms of instruction, but also, of course, research and service. And then these are some of the additional qualifications that we list, and some of these Dave already went over. Okay? Now, our goal this afternoon was not for us to talk at you, but to entertain questions and to hear what you have to say. So I'm going to just stop now, and you can ask us and any other members of the search committee any questions.
Maybe I should give the mic to those that are...
Asking questions? Oh, go ahead.
And I just mentioned one more thing.
Yeah,
about
you
the,
can do
the
anything you
attributes.
want, sure.
Are we on? Thank you. And when we talked about diversity, it's really not just the usual definitions of diversity, but we want a pool that's broad with respect to disciplinary diversity. So, you know, it's pretty traditional that people involved with honors are from humanities or social sciences, but we really want to try to attract a pool that cuts across the disciplines at UK, and I just thought I would add that as an element of diversity.
Including the STEM disciplines. So
Yes.
that's really important. So think about that when you're nominating. So are there any questions for us?
Or comments about?
Yeah.
Could you share with us how Could you share with us how the packet was constructed that is being sent to the probable
Yeah.
candidates? You know, who put it together? What was the involvement of Wick Kiefer?
Wick Kiefer was instrumental in putting together that packet and basically asked us for information to be included, but also asked us what information we felt should be included. Phil Harling, who's the interim dean and is chairing the transition committee, was really important in terms of the information that he provided from the transition committee, but also in his role as interim dean. And then Dave and I also suggested information that our search consultant should include. She has drafted the leadership profile and actually has come back to us and said, I need more information about this part or that part, and so we've talked about where she can get that, or if we can provide it, but she really has led that effort with our consultation.
And we sent a huge pile of information, and they kind of have a standard, I guess, format for these leadership profiles, so they're able to pull, like we sent some draft material from the transition committee, some information about the university, the community, some data about the number of faculty involved in the honors program now, and the number of students, and what disciplines they come from, and all kinds of
And of course, she
detail.
didn't use it verbatim. I mean, she has put together this nice little document for it based on what we sent her. But, for example, she said, we had mentioned that she should include information about the new building, because that's really very exciting, in the living learning community. And she came back to us and said, I need more information on that. What I have isn't enough to build a really informative paragraph. So it really has been a give and take. She's been very helpful.
Thank you. In your statement of qualifications, I don't know if you can put that slide back up there
Sure.
or not.
This one?
I think it's maybe the next one where you mentioned preference. Okay, yeah, the first one there, serving as the dean. Previous administrative experience in higher education, preferably in an honors college or honors program. Has the committee discussed whether that might limit the pool of candidates? There probably aren't a lot of people out across the country that has worked in an honors college before. I was just wondering if that was intentionally put in there, or as an artifact of previous discussions.
I have an answer. The short answer is yes, it was intentional as a preferred qualification, but if, there are lots of honors programs out there, and so that opens up the landscape pretty widely, probably fewer honors colleges, but I don't think we're necessarily looking to attract a sitting dean from an honors college, but we're thinking an associate dean or a program director, someone with some connection with honors. And it could go beyond that, because there are a number of universities that have deep programs with undergraduate research, so other types of undergraduate enrichment and engagement that would be relevant experience, we think, for the role. So we think we can get a good pool.
Are you suggesting that, do you think that it will discourage some people from applying?
Well, I don't know. That was the basis of my question. I'm not sure if somebody in reading that might interpret that by saying, well, I don't have honors program
Yeah.
experience, but I have been a dean of college somewhere, or
Right.
other higher education
Right.
experience. I just wasn't sure.
So do you think the word preferably should be changed to something else, like including, or desirable, yeah, something like that? Or such, or and add maybe like an undergraduate research program, or something like that. I'm just trying to think of, I don't want to discourage anybody. So if you think of some wording, yeah.
I was just wondering if you just said maybe like honors college or honors program experience preferred but not required.
Oh, that would work. Yeah, that's good. Or desirable but not required, or something. Yeah, something. Yeah, I think that way someone
Yeah.
wouldn't be,
I like that. Something
yeah,
like
good.
And Whit Kiefer has done a number of honors college dean searches, so given this question, we'll circle back with them and maybe look at one of their prior leadership profiles and see how they've handled it.
And I'm not opposed to the word preferably. I'm just bringing it out for this discussion.
It's a great comment. Thank you.
That's why we're here. Holly?
I was just wondering how you would weigh an experience in an honors college or honors program at an R1 university like ours versus somebody coming from a liberal arts college like Center or something like that.
So Claire was not unable to be at our initial meeting, so that's why she doesn't have command of some of these issues.
Because I wanted to answer all of them.
But the search committee did discuss this particular issue at the initial meeting and in the context of the charge that we received from the provost. And our intent is not to focus the search narrowly on just R1 institutions, but to really try to get a diverse set of candidates from places like, Center or liberal arts colleges. Is that, for somebody from, somebody from the search committee can confirm we had that discussion? Yeah.
In fact, I think it's the Honors College Dean from Arizona that originally came from, I can't remember which one. It was Swarthmore, one of those, where they could make the argument that they had a long history of experience working with gifted students from a wide variety of backgrounds, which is exactly what you'd be looking for in this position. So I think we're very open to that.
And I think the general answer is that we're going to look at everybody who applies, and everybody's going to get a very careful look, because we don't want to rule somebody out who has fantastic experience, but they've been at a liberal arts college and we're a large state flagship institution, an R1, so we're going to look at everybody.
We probably ought to emphasize that point in the leadership.
Yeah, that would be a good idea to bring that up.
This is really just piling on to that theme, because then when I look at would qualify for appointment as a full professor with tenure, that's where I worry that we may miss someone from a very good liberal arts college, excellent scholar, but they clearly are not going to have necessarily the productivity that would grant them a tenure full professor position in one of our departments.
I really disagree with that. So, I was at 2 liberal arts colleges before I came here. And our requirements for promotion to full professor were not dissimilar to here. So I think if you're looking at a quality liberal arts institution, I think you're going to see the same thing.
That's good then.
And ideally, it would be someone that would meet our normal standards, but we haven't talked about this, but we do have a special title series at UK that if there was someone exceptional and they didn't have that research experience, we could possibly consider them.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, I know that how much information is being provided about the current program and what the transition will be like to the college? Because I know that a lot of honor students are kind of anxious about the transition because there are going to be a lot of changes, especially the fee. And that's something big. I don't know, I'm just asking how much information is going to be provided to the candidates so that they're aware of this coming in, because I feel like that's going to be a huge part of especially the first year, is kind of talking down students and being like, okay, this is how we're going to accommodate those changes.
So the fee hasn't been decided yet, and that's still being discussed in the committee. But that's probably not something that's going to go into the leadership profile or the position description. But certainly it would be something that would be discussed with candidates when we talk with them about, what it's going to be like on the ground. So I don't want you to think that we're going to hide anything from these people. I mean, they really are going to have to know what issues they're looking at. And when people, we have a student representative on the search committee. Where's Hannah? From the honors program. And when the candidates come to campus, the finalists come to campus, there's going to be opportunities for the students to come and ask questions and talk to them. So there will be plenty of chances to make sure that whoever is coming in has that information, and also for you to get a sense of who these people are and what they're like.
Right, thank you.
Did you have a question?
Oh,
You need the microphone.
Sorry. I was following up on Phil's question. That, it is true, but you mentioned the possibility of a special title series. I find it difficult that a physical or natural scientists at a small liberal arts college would be able to be appointed as a full professor with tenure. I mean, there might be a few, but that's, so if it's open for a special title series, that's something different.
Well, I guess it's kind of, we're just going to have to look at the applicants and
Because, I
see.
mean, this university
what we get.
insists on funding as probably the primary signal.
And that would be really, really hard. Yeah. Anybody else? Oh, here, you take this one.
So I have a quick question. Would the primary appointment be to the Honors College? And if it is an internal candidate, would they give up their full professor in their college to become the dean?
No, I can't imagine that happening. But I don't, this is a loud thing. I'm sorry, what did you say?
From I remember from our discussions, a primary appointment has to be in the honors college for this person. But your question about what would happen for an internal person, I don't think we've ever looked at. I presume they'd have to have some kind of joint appointment.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But there will be a mechanism, and you can, I know because I know you know a lot more about Senate rules than I do, Holly, but there will be mechanisms to house faculty appointments within this college.
But this, in my mind, raises a question about somebody comes here, even from external, they serve a 6-year term as dean, and then they're ready to go back to the faculty.
Exactly, that's what I
Where
was
do they
thinking.
go?
Where do they go?
So
So that
the
has to be
transition
a-
committee worked on that?
So we've talked about the appointments of faculty, but there are all, it's UK, there's all sorts of rules about how faculty appointments go. And so it has to be worked out in the context of our rules and regs anyway.
Right, so the complication, and any suggestions would be great, is that this dean has to be equivalent to every other dean on campus, or the honors college will not function well. They have to sit equal at the table. And if you put their primary appointment in someone else's college, they are not. And so that discussion came up at least at one
Yes.
transition committee meeting. That, I mean, I agree that you'd have to have a mechanism where the secondary appointment, where if they transitioned
Yeah.
out and went back in, that's where they'd go. But I cannot see how you can put, it would be like bringing, the new dean of the business school and saying, oh, but by the way, we're going to put your primary appointment, in the College of Medicine. They'll fill out your evaluation, don't worry about it. I don't see how that would work. And we had that discussion at one point, but it was going to have to be looked at.
There are a
and-
lot of things that are still going to have to be worked out. But, I mean, I agree, if this person has their appointment in the honors college, there has to be some sort of secondary appointment, because when they finish, they have to go somewhere. And it would be in their academic home department. So,
But I think that this is a great comment, and I think it
It's a really
means
good
we need to talk
To
to
clarify
the
it.
provost and then talk to the search firm about
Yeah.
how this gets conveyed when they're, soliciting candidates, for sure.
yeah, I mean,
We
if I
need
were
to
to
put that
apply,
up there.
I'd want to know
Yeah.
what was going to happen.
Hi, could you please describe your external recruitment process? That way, the full nation is going to be examined for applicants.
Sure. So this ad will be placed in a bunch of, like, the Chronicle of Higher Education. There's actually an association of honors colleges, college deans and directors. And in order to post job ads on there, you have to be a member. UK is a member, so it will go on there. There's a variety. Do you have the list with you? I don't have my list.
I
Does
don't
any
have
of
the
the search
list, but-
committee members have the list?
It's,
With them?
there's like 10 or 15 different places.
Yeah,
like, that
it's
this
a
is gonna
very
sh-
long list.
This is going to show up.
It represents a number of different specialized higher ed administrative associations. And then we're asking for nominations, too. So we're hoping that those different channels will produce a national pool and a large, diverse pool.
And for those of you that aren't familiar, Witt Kiefer is probably one of the most prominent search firms in the country, and they have a really great higher education practice. They've recruited a number of deans to UK, and they have these search consultants maintain a network. And so they are all the time monitoring the careers of administrators around the country, and they're essentially smiling and dialing and using what used to be called a Rolodex to to present our case and to solicit their applications. So it's going to be a very wide net.
You can probably find a Rolodex now in the Smithsonian. Want to know what one looks like. But I think Dave's point is really an important one, that the search firm, part of their job, and one of the reasons you hire them, is that they've done lots of searches like this. And so they already have candidates in mind too. And so even if somebody here doesn't nominate someone, or somebody, we have an Honors College Advisory Board, and that dean from Arizona or Arizona State is on it. There's a couple of other honors deans on it. They can nominate people, but if they don't, the search firm goes to people and says, this search is being conducted. I think you'd be a really good candidate. Would you consider this? Can we talk about this? And so based on their experience of meeting people that have been nominated for other similar types of positions, they'll reach out to them as well. So there's all kinds of ways that this will happen. Other questions?
We'll go to that side this time.
Hi, I just have one question. Regarding the word significant experience, has that been defined a little bit further by the search committee? I can see candidates just getting a little confused as to what defines significant.
No, I don't think we've talked about exactly what that means at all. So that's a really good point.
I didn't know if that would be placed anywhere in the ads. And then to kind of add to the advertising question, any job that's placed on the UK ad or UK job site actually automatically gets pulled to about 15 different websites as well. So that will help increase diversity traffic in addition to other
Yeah,
sites
it will be
that
posted
may
there.
say
The applicants
So I
will
think that
apply
helped.
through Whit Kiefer. They're going to be the kind of clearinghouse for us, but that's great. Thank you.
But the position will be listed on UK's
Yeah, it'll be on.
HR website.
Hello. I was just a little bit concerned about the hard clinical aspect of this list of qualities, because this would be a very soft skill position. So, or at least a person willing to let other people be soft, let other people emphasize soft skills, because Light Honors College is a very tight-knit community. And our interim dean, we call him Dr. Phil. So, because I honestly don't know his last name. Oh, is he here? Oh, sorry, but oh, but yes. So this is. I think it would be a good idea to emphasize that this will require someone who's more than just an administrative type, who is a very kind and yes, an approachable person.
So I'm not sure how you put that in a job ad.
Yeah.
So that's something that emerges during interviews.
I was
And
just wanting to make sure you all understood how tight-knit. the
sure,
community
of
is.
course. But we do emphasize good communication skills. And a good communicator can talk to lots and lots of different groups of people and can convey, and a good communicator is someone who conveys openness and approachability. And I think those are the kinds of qualities you're talking about. So there are things we need to look for in this candidate. I think we can say in the ad, communication skills, that's going to mean different things to different people, but that's a quality that we're going to look for when we talk to people. We should just pass it.
So you emphasize the point about integrating within the colleges. That's something you really want the Honors College to be able to do, to sort of play with the other colleges. I was just wondering, are you looking towards this candidate to bring those ideas, or are you looking towards this candidate to implement ideas that the transition committee has already laid out?
I think it's going to have to be both. I don't know how it can be one or the other. So my short answer is both. They're going to have to work with people here. The transition committee is putting a lot of time and effort into developing this document. It will go through the University Senate in terms of what this looks like. There's also the contingencies that are part of the gift agreement, which the transition committee has also had to work with. But it's obviously, we want somebody who's a good idea person and who's enthusiastic and is creative and innovative. And this is a wonderful opportunity because it is the first honors college here. This is the first dean. So we want both of those things.
And the work of the transition committee is, it's really to create a framework within which a new leader can come in and apply their ideas. The transition committee isn't going to solve every problem and implement every detail. That would make the job probably less interesting. So is that a fair characterization?
I just worry, and I have worried for a while, that this new dean in the Honors College does not integrate with other colleges and curricula, because at least from the natural sciences perspective, which has, let's see, I think some people call it intransigent, and other people call it filled, other people call it rich, very course-rich curricula. There isn't a lot of room for, especially in the first 2 years in the current system, to enable a science grad to actually get through the system. There are some that do, but it's mostly because of AP credit. And so I hope that the dean knows that, or wants to integrate with the colleges, because that will speak towards the success of the college.
Given that that's one of our primary criteria for this person, we are really going to be looking at that. But that issue with regard to the STEM disciplines has come up many times and has been discussed a lot in the transition committee meetings. The STEM disciplines are well represented on the transition committee, so it's not something that's been overlooked at that point. I think it will be something we'll really pay close attention to. Anybody else?
I think I just wanted to reiterate the comment that started with some of our students, that there are a lot of concerns on campus. There's a lot of unknowns on campus. The transition committee is doing a great job of creating a framework, and we'll be presenting that at the same time that these people are reading the packet and applying. And there's nothing really in anything that we can see now as external to the process that makes it clear about the dual, that this person will be building from a framework and having to, and I don't know what verbs we can make that are nice and soft and yet also firm, but that clearly show that this is going to be a very deep challenge, and that there's going to have to be a lot of facilitation of people coming together around a new idea, and that idea is somewhat unformed. That's not in the current language. And if it's going to be in something that people see externally, then I strongly recommend that you let the people internally see it too.
Sure. Did you want to answer that?
Well, I have the exact same concern, and I had the exact same concern, and I was thinking that if this were made too explicit in the external documents, and I was considering applying, I might run away. So one question I have, and this isn't a direct answer, it's sort of adding on to your question, is at what point do we make explicit the still in the works relationship between a framework and the creativity of the candidate? I thought, my sense is that will come soon, but not at the first contact with the job. But that's not, your question has more aspects.
I would imagine by the time we start getting the bulk of the application, I would imagine by the time we start getting the bulk of the applications, a lot of the transition committee work is going to be in the public domain.
A week or two.
Yeah, so, and so anybody who's a candidate, you know, I mean, the search consultants, when they're talking to potential candidates, would do well to point them to the Senate website or wherever this happens to reside, and they can read it for themselves, and that can be part of the discussion they have in the interview process.
Well, if they're doing their homework.
Yeah,
They'll know.
we would hope.
Yeah.
But we'd like them to know.
The 12th.
Yes.
You know.
The
definitely.
report, the transition committee report is going to the Senate and will be discussed on the 12th, the meeting of the 12th. So it's almost done. So that will certainly be available too. Yeah.
I imagine that with the building of the new honors college, that adaptability will be very important in this candidate. So is that something that's going to be stressed during interviews or also on the ads?
Well, I'm not sure what we can call it in an ad. What do you think we could call it? What would you add to the ad?
Something with the word adaptability.
So you want us to actually say this person should be adaptable. I don't know if we can phrase it quite that way, but we'll figure something out. But I would think, yes, this is something we're going to look for. And it's not just a matter of putting that sort of thing in a job ad as a quality we're looking for. Those are the kinds of things that the committee can look for when we look at the applications. We can look for evidence of that. So what has this person done in their previous positions that might indicate to us that they're innovative, they're adaptable, they're approachable, they work well with students? We're going to be looking for those kinds of things in all the applications before we ever even bring somebody to interview them. So I think, do you have that on the list, adaptability? Yeah, okay, so we'll certainly add that.
Let me add something about the process. Especially some of the students that are here may not understand this, but as someone who's been through a dean search process on a number of occasions, when you go to the airport interview, it's an hour and a half of grilling. I mean, you're sitting at the end of the table, the entire search committee is there, and there's very well-structured interview questions to try to get at these qualifications and these attributes. Typically, they're behavioral questions as well as questions about specific experiences that one has had that would lead one to success in the role. So it's tough, and so these things will come out.
And it's not just how a person answers a question verbally, the words they use, but also you can tell if somebody's approachable or if they're adaptable when they're answering a question. I mean, their presentation of self, I'm a sociologist, so their presentation of self, if you will, tells you a lot about an individual when they're in that kind of situation. So I think that's something we'll be looking for. Yeah, did you have a question?
Something that's just occurred to me, again, thanks to Jane's comment, is that, and we know this already, but it's worth being reminded, is that we are not only interviewing them, they are also interviewing us.
Mm-hmm.
And many of us in this room, either formally or informally, will meet these people, and the more clear we are about what it is we are asking them to do, the better, the more likely we are to impress them. So we also, in some ways, talking to myself here, just sharing that idea with everyone. Maybe
I think
we're
it's a
talking
really
to-
important point, and I want to emphasize again that when people come to campus, there are going to be opportunities for all of us to talk to them and hear them talk. And so we need to show up. And if we're really concerned about this, then we need to be there. We need to take advantage of these opportunities. And then once we show up and we hear them and we interact with them, then we need to provide feedback to the search committee. Well, I'll be on the search committee, but I mean, you need to provide the search committee feedback. So we want to hear what you think after you've met these people and heard them talk. And get the word out to your colleagues and your peers about how important this is. These are genuine concerns that are being expressed today, and we want to make sure that, again, this is the first honors college here, the first dean, and we really want it to go well. So we need to be there and we need to provide feedback.
Sort of from like a student's perspective in terms of providing feedback, I know that oftentimes trying to talk to the administration, trying to get opinions, just because UK is so large, can feel very difficult as a student. And I know you mentioned that there's going to be opportunities for students to talk to the like final candidates, which I think is awesome because that was one of my concerns. But will there be an opportunity, like a forum like this or something like that, where students can express concerns that they might have about the final candidates? Because I know oftentimes opinions like come to light and like realizations are made that like might not be able to express, but they are very concerned about. And like obviously we can't have students like choosing the dean. Like I don't really know how to do that, but I think that it's important that because the honors community is a little bit different than a lot of like the colleges on UK's campus, because like we live in the community for a year or two. We are super involved in it. I think it's important to have that student feedback. So I was wondering if there was a way to address that
Sure.
planned.
So at the very least, Dave mentioned that there's going to be an email address. And if you know people who weren't here today but who watched it, or encourage them to send us information, questions, etc. So at the very least, there's an email address, but we can certainly arrange for a forum for the honor students. I mean, I don't have any problem with that. I think it'd be super helpful to hear what the students have to say after the interviews. So sure, I think that's a great suggestion. Is that okay with you?
I think that's a great idea.
When Kiefer did the College of Medicine Dean, which is the last one they did, after each candidate came, they actually had, they sent a general email out with a link that you could email to, and with your comments, and then all of those comments went to the search committee. So the advantage of that over an open forum is simply that in an open forum, sometimes it's both difficult for you to say exactly how you feel, and it's also probably uncomfortable to have an open forum of 100 people sitting around dissecting someone who just came on campus. But every single one of those comments went to the search committee, and some people wrote a lot, and it was really helpful.
It's a really good idea, Becky. In other words, there will be some mechanism, at least one, if not more, for student input.
Do we currently have an explicit budget for the Honors College, or will that be part of the transition committee report, so that the candidates at some point would be able to see not only are you going to work within this framework, but also here's the money you're going to have?
That's actually the last thing that the transition committee has been working on, is revenue and expenses. And so, you have it right there. But it will be in the report that goes to the Senate. So yes, we have been working on that. And it's, I mean, it's dollars and cents. It's very, very laid out. Lisa Wilson has actually been phenomenal in creating different scenarios with different amount, you know, if this happens, here's one scenario and here's what we'd have and that kind of thing. And she was joking with us the other day because she just kept handing us these big sheets of paper with numbers on them, and this is scenario 1 and this is scenario 2, you know, so yes, we have.
So when you talk about the candidates, like the final ones coming to campus, and then afterwards we have a forum, how would we be interacting with them on campus? Would they be giving a talk? Would it be a sort of forum?
We haven't worked out all the details of that, but.
We're on. Yeah, so these search processes typically involve the finalists being on campus for 2 days. They'll meet with groups from every possible constituency during that time. They'll meet with the president, the provost, the deans, with students, with faculty, etc. And there will be there's typically an open forum, a public forum, where the candidates would come and present their vision for the position and for the college. There's typically Q&A that's part of that, and of course, students, everyone on campus and the entire community would be invited to that, and it would be available streaming and on video. So that's a piece of it, that information will get out.
Okay, thank you.
It's actually a pretty exhausting process for the person over the 2 days.
How, I was looking at this opportunities, so how hardwired is the phrase, implement the new curriculum? Is the,
So nothing's hardwired.
okay. In
I
other
mean, this
words,
is a
will
draft.
this individual be able to craft the new curriculum?
So I don't know if the individual will be able to craft, certainly not from scratch, because there are, first of all, there are things that are in the report now that are going to be going to the University Senate on the 12th. So some of that will already be decided before this person gets here.
The budget provides limits to how much crafting of the curriculum you can do. I mean, that's one of
We want to record what you're saying.
well, just a small part of the answer to that question is, well, it's yes and no. But the no part, meaning the extent to which this person cannot completely craft a new curriculum, is limited by the number of hires that are made possible by the gift and the budget, and some curricular, what do we call them, suggestions, proposals, but they're pretty firm about foundational experiences coming out of the transition committee. So it's yes and no, but there's a framework, and then hopefully this person would have the initiative and imagination to work in that framework.
I'll yell this. So is part of that the Lewis's, so they're designing part of the curriculum?
No, they're not designing part of the curriculum. They have specified money to be used to hire a certain number of lecturers in the college. They're not.
Right, but if there's a limited number of people
Right.
that can be hired, that then restricts how much of the curriculum you can develop.
But they didn't say you have to offer X course, right?
And just as a current dean on campus, I've been kind of sharing ideas with Phil, with Dean Harling, on how to integrate with the campus and how to incentivize colleges to participate. And so I think the new dean will find a lot of enthusiasm among the deans to cooperate. But in the short term, you're right. I mean, there's funding limitations, and there's certainly the curriculum framework is in place. But if a new dean comes and is very creative, has great leadership skills, great vision, they can always put proposals through the Senate process, just like any other dean would do that is trying to improve their program. So I think the landscape longer term is wide open.
More open.
More open.
Yeah, more open. Yeah.
Within the confines of our shared governance process.
And again, I mean, this person is going to have to take into account the parameters, the constraints, if you will, of some disciplines in some colleges, where the requirements for the students in that particular major are pretty fixed. So that will place limits too. Other questions? Okay, well, that's like perfect timing. It's 5 till 5. So thank you so much for coming. Please send information or questions or ideas, suggestions to the email. You'll be getting a notification about what that email address actually is. We were hoping it would be ready today. We were told it's not set up quite yet. And also please encourage your colleagues and friends and fellow students to participate in the process. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.